You're listening to the Unfucking Work podcast for people professionals, leaders, business owners, and anyone wanting to start their own mutiny and unfuck the workplace. A Work Pirates production with your hosts James Eves and Michelle Minikin. Here we are again, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't feel like 5 minutes since we recorded our podcast. And we've got a bit off script, haven't we, today?
Yep.
We were only going to have Rob as a guest from Tailored Thinking, but we also got Chloe from Tailored Thinking.
So we've got bonus human.
Bonus human. Two for the price of one.
Absolutely.
That's how we describe in a Taylor Thinking. She's definitely a bonus human in Taylor Thinking, definitely.
I'll take that.
Yeah, you have to change your email signature, I suppose, now, won't you?
Bonus human. BH for short.
Oh, no. Don't mash Benson and Hedges.
Oops.
Anyway, so what are we talking about today?
What are we talking about today? So one of the things you challenged me about was around one of the ideas about how we can make work better, and one of them was around personalisation. So that was one of the themes that we talked about. So that's something we could chat about today, around personalisation and making more work more human, and lots of different ways that we could do that. That's one thing. But what questions have you got for us? I
love the fact that your sort of strapline is "make work better." It's on the posts behind you. Ours is "unfucking work," and it says the same thing, but you guys are significantly more polite than us, turns out.
Yeah, I think that's it. We just have the polite kind of polite voice, rather than being the more explicit one. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So personalisation then in work, what does that mean? What's the problem? What's going on, would you say? Yeah. Should I
start talking about personalisation, and then maybe we talk about Jobcraft a bit, Claire, and you can
Yeah.
So for me, I think what we've done in terms of designing work, and a lot of the way that we design work now still comes back to the Industrial Revolution. So it's like over 100, 200 years ago now, because like actually the frameworks, the thinking that we had there are still very much kind of in place in organizations today. We just kind of follow that approach, and which is around very task and control, very much kind of give people tasks and activities and jobs. So effectively you've got an idea of this is the things we need people to do, or these are the things we need to do, I suppose, thinking about it. And if we can't find anyone else to do it, we'll get humans to do it, and we'll tell them what to do. So that's the kind of that mindset is how we do it. So very much boxing people in rather than setting people kind of free and tapping into our strengths. So often when it comes to organizations, people treat diversity, treat heterogeneity and difference as a threat, as an inconvenience, as something to kind of gets in the way of work, if that makes sense, something to be suffered. Whereas actually what we find from more contemporary research, and certainly people, if you talk to them about the job that they've enjoyed or loved or the greatest experiences, is when they feel there's a personal connection to them and the work that they're doing, they feel they can be themselves in work. And there's an avalanche of research that kind of sits behind this, is saying when people feel that personal connection, that personal fit between them as individuals and the work they do, they create positive outcomes for the individuals, for their teams, and for the organizations and the people they serve. And if you think about like personalization, like you can personalize any and every aspect of our lives at the moment, right? As consumers, we can personalize kind of coffee cups or posters or our cars, our clothes, trainers. Yeah. So anything we can personalize. And as manufacturers recognize that when we buy stuff that we personalize, we tend to value it more. We tend to have a great sense of attachment to it. We may pay more for it as well. We're more likely to keep hold of it. And so manufacturers recognize that. Yet those same manufacturers, organizations, will be creating jobs where they expect people to do things in exactly the same way. They won't allow people to bring that personalization to work. So I'll stop there in terms of that kind of element about why the kind of personalization, because you could literally just press play and just wait for me to stop after, because I'm so passionate about this stuff. But I suppose that's a starting point in terms of personalization, and why I think we need to make work better rather than unfuck work, in terms of by bringing in personal touch, to bring in more human touch to workplace.
Yeah, as I'm moving away from that sort of humans as machines to humans
Yes.
as humans, with strengths and weaknesses and preferences and different circadian rhythms and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think if we embrace that, kind of celebrate that, it makes more work more inclusive as well. So we were at I was doing a presentation last week for the colleague should have done actually, Charlotte, which was, so I was giving her kind of presentation, as it were, for SEND. So this is kind of students with special educational needs and disabilities. And one of the stats that I came out from that was that only 6% of people that have a disability or special educational need that are getting additional support, kind of social support, are in paid employment. So it's like only 6% of people. And it's because we're not very good at organisations, at workplaces, about kind of thinking about how we can be inclusive of working and creating environments and jobs that everyone can do, rather than us saying these are the specific jobs and specific activities we need people to do. And if you don't fit that box, you can't do it.
Yeah. Our first podcast guest, I saw the post thing from Charlotte. Our first podcast guest, Kieran Rose, did some research around employability and neurodivergence. I always get that wrong. So it was really, really interesting to look at the fact that employers were openly saying if somebody disclosed that they had autism or an ADHD, they would not offer them a job, which is illegal, actually.
That was half of 750 companies.
Wow.
So yes, I'll send you the research. It's interesting.
Fascinating. Interesting, so terrifying and enraging, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of that. And I think it's part of that is, I think, and only recently I've made this connection. So often from a positive psychology field, which is often informed from our approach, we talk about a deficit perspective. So the fact we're really good at spotting problems and difficulties. And I think what happens is that when we see someone say they have the neurodivergent, or they've got this or something, then they're kind of atypical in that respect. Immediately our focus is on a problem in terms of saying this is going to create a problem for us, and we hear that more loudly than we do thinking about what are the benefits or the strength that person can bring to that role. And I think sometimes that floods out our ability to think kind of more creatively in terms of that work. So it's not as surprising that I think when people are confronted with that, they struggle to think what they can do. Like we just hear it really loudly, but I think it's around then saying, okay, that's a very human reaction, but what then the frameworks, how can we support people to think differently about how they think about work, and they create opportunities for people.
Yeah. Yes. So Chloe, thank you so much. And the panic on your face. You've been dragged onto this podcast at the last minute.
I only came over with a cup of tea, and here I am.
So I think you were going to talk to us a little bit about job crafting. Is that right? If I got the wrong end.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd say I was like a master of job crafting now, because I've learned about it so much over the last 2 years. But yeah, job crafting, to put it basically, is making small, positive and tangible changes to your job to make it a better fit for you as an individual. Often with jobs, it's like a one size fits all. However, we're all different. We've all got different strengths and skills. So job crafting enables you to bring your strengths to the table at work, basically.
So could you give us some examples of what you've done to craft your job? Yeah,
so I've crafted my job loads over the last 2 years. And when you craft your job and make it more you're less likely to want to give it up. So I don't want to give my job up now, because I've literally crafted all these things to make it me. And like, if someone was to come into my job now, like it's just all my different bits and bobs. So they'd just be like, but yeah, so there's 5 different ways you can craft your job. So there's purpose crafting, task crafting, relationship crafting, skill crafting, and wellbeing crafting. So yeah, I'll give you an example of each. So purpose crafting for me, I don't like numbers or maths. I've got very much words brain. So yeah, however, I do the social media marketing for tailored thinking. And one of the ways you need to see whether you're progressing or improving is to look at the data at the end of the month. So I said to Rob, like, look, I don't really like doing this. Obviously, I know I can't not do it because it's part of the job. But how can I craft it to make it more fun for me? And Rob just said, if you don't look at the data, you'll not see how you're improving. And just having that conversation with Rob really like rewired how I thought about it. So now when I go to do it at the end of the month, I think, oh, I might get some good numbers from this. I might see if I'm doing well. So yeah, that was my example of purpose crafting. Wellbeing crafting, so just being outdoors for me helps me be more productive, feel happier. So I make sure that I walk my dog every lunchtime, and it benefits me and him. And yeah, I just feel happier. It's good to get outdoors, away from your screen.
Shout out to Henry here.
Shout out to Henry, the dachshund, the mini dachshund. And then task crafting, so something that really matters to me as an individual is human connection. So I love to meet new people. And one of the ways I've done this at Taylor Thinking is I'm now involved in like 80% of the meetings. Hence the reason I'm here today on this podcast. So yeah, working from home and stuff, it can get a bit lonely. So I like to be in the office, meeting new people, and just coming along to the meetings and just, yeah. So that's how I've crafted my tasks. And then, yeah, similarly with relationship crafting, becoming more involved with clients. I've like say a lot of the clients I'm friends with now, like I've been for coffees with people, so just crafting my relationships with them. And then I've got another one. What was my other one? Skill crafting, yeah, the last one. So something that I need to do every day in my job's be a good writer. So whether it's writing copy for social media or writing an email campaign, and writing blogs. So I've just challenged myself to write 10 blogs without Rob looking at them at all. Because I normally like write one and be like, oh, Rob, will you please look at it before I post it? But I've just challenged myself to write 10, just do it, post it, and that's it. They're out to the world. And it's definitely made me a better writer. So yeah, that's the 5 ways I've crafted my job.
Yeah. Can I have some questions, but I'd love to ask questions to Chloe. But I can also, as you're talking through, I can give some reflections back on how that's impacted on me and the business as well, because I think that's something that's interesting and that I can share. But you can, I don't know if you have any other questions for Chloe first, but I can answer it.
Yes. We've been very distracted. It's like we're living in Brooklyn and, you know, under siege at the moment. There's Ninos, I don't know what the technical term for them, all over the place. There's like at least 3 lots of Ninos going on outside. So I'm not sure what's going. It's been like this all weekend. It's been
funny, we can't hear it.
No, we can't hear it.
Oh, okay. It's like, oh, there's Ninos and there's aeroplanes. It's like, yes. So we don't live in Brooklyn. We live just north of Newcastle in, you know, the suburbs. But it does sound like, yes, some major incident going on.
Well, I hope Work Pirate Towers isn't kind of like raided. That would be an interesting podcast. It'll probably help with the viewers, right?
If you hear the proximity machine guns going off,
yeah,
and we know that the zombie apocalypse has started. Anyway, back to job crafting. Segue back into why. So, with the 5 areas you've talked about, why do you think we don't do that in general? It's is it just that we're all used to doing the one size fits all job description? It sounds so much better, and you sound really energized, excited about it. So why don't more companies do that, do you think?
I think it's awareness for one. Like before I joined Taylor Thinking, I didn't know about job crafting. And I've had obviously jobs before this, and I will have probably been actively job crafting anyways. But for job crafting to work well, you have to do it deliberately. And yes, and just having that awareness and Rob sharing these ideas for me, it's just, yeah, that really helped. And Rob obviously gives me the space and the opportunity to do job crafting. So it has to come from top up, like it has to come from your leadership, to give you that space to job craft.
I think if I could add to that, just one thing that I think you've nailed it, just the number one thing. But I think often we find that people struggle to. It takes time to. There's energy and engagement needed to job craft, so you need to kind of do it deliberately to pick up your workload. And often we're working, we're kind of sleep using your zombie analogy. We sleep work, like we do an autopilot. We kind of we just rush through work without thinking about how we do it. And actually job crafting necessitates you thinking about actually how you do your job. And often we just don't create that space for people, or we're a bit terrified what would happen if we actually ask people about what bits do you enjoy your job? Do you not enjoy your job? You know, then what the answers we're gonna get, and they're worried about them having responsibility to do it. So I think we're not naturally used to having those conversations in workplaces in the same way that, say, mental health is, that we're recognizing we're not very good at. We're getting better at it, that we just need to get better at having better conversations about how we can do our job differently. So yeah, that's just to add to your point. I think you've nailed the main one, Clay.
It seems as well particularly timely. I think we've always needed this, but we talk to a lot of companies where the discussions are around retention. So I know we've talked about the Great Resignation, etc. But there are companies that we've talked to that really look after people, but they're still losing good people because someone will throw another 10 grand, 20 grand at them. And there's only so much I think that can happen. But it sounds like personalization, job crafting, have them part of that conversation to say, well, can't give you any more money, but we'll throw a little bit at you. But what in your role could we actually look at that would...
I'd like someone to throw some money at me.
Yes, we're always open to that. Without having to dance for it. I do prefer. But yes, it sounds like it's a way for a company to look to retain people if they don't have the option to just drop some money at them. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, and a lot of reading I've done recently, with the pandemic, people want more meaning, purpose in their jobs, and they're willing to give that up for money. Obviously, people want to be happy, and job crafting enables you to be more happy in your job, more satisfied, more motivated, more productive. And people from the pandemic, it's kind of awoken people to be like, I'd just rather be happier and have more meaning in my job than maybe an extra £2 grand a month or something like that, you know what I mean? And that is, they've found people are retaining staff better with job crafting.
Yeah, there's an article this week at some point basically saying that Gen whatever we're on to now, Gen Z I think, are lazy. Because it's almost, I think I retweeted it this morning, so I'll put the link in the show notes. But there's that, I think, that strive for meaning rather than wanting to, I don't know, what's the word, like go up the corporate ladder by any means, selling your soul and
promotions and all of that.
Yeah, it's thinking up the greasy pole. It's horrible talking about poles, awful analogy, but it just seems way more commonsensical. Instead of working to live, it's sort of living to work. It's the opposite way around. That makes it, have I got the right way around?
I was just thinking on that one. I'll get back to you, but yes.
That makes sense.
Sounds good to us, Michelle.
Yeah.
I think we just started out, whatever happens, that sounded great. We know it again.
Awesome. So we're whizzing through this podcast today, aren't we? So I just grabbed my copy of Rob's book, Personalisation at Work, which is a nice one to flick through. So if anybody is interested, and here's the recording advertisement for Rob. Buy the book.
Bookshops, yeah.
Yes.
Online.
I'm just still working on my book at the moment, so just bear.
Awesome. So if our listeners are looking around them at work, how do they get started? How's the quickest way to do some crafting?
What do you think?
So maybe get a pen and paper, write what you love about your job and what you loathe about your job. 5-10 things for each maybe, and then see how you can craft them. So like I said, it's not just giving yourself more tasks. It's, can you change how you think about them? Can you fit a walk in before work? just things, it's really small changes to your job to make it like 1 or 2% better. So start really small, write some things down that you love and see if you can change it a little bit.
Awesome.
Brilliant. The thing I'd say to add to that was often we challenge people to say, what's the way of making your job 1% better? So not like going, it's not kind of like changing your job overnight. It's like, what's the one thing, 1% thing you could do? And be curious about it and see if it works for you as well. Because sometimes, right, we're going to try something and it's not going to work, or we're not motivated enough to do it. It doesn't stick. And just be curious about it. Give yourself permission not to be successful in everything. It's not another thing to do, but just it's an opportunity for you to make your job a bit better. So that 1% stuff. But love and loathe stuff, it's a really great exercise that we find works really well.
That's great. Awesome. Anything else from you, James?
I think that's good. I imagine we're often very good at coming up with what's bad about a role, but actually to sit down and think, what do I actually love about my role?
Yeah.
I think broadens that perspective and maybe makes you realize, oh, actually, I don't have it as bad as I think I do. And it's a few tweaks and the 1% might make just the difference. And I don't need to polish my CV and start looking around. So
I think just to add to that, was around when we personalize things or we use personalized things, we're more likely to value them, what was recovered, I said earlier on, and you're less likely to want to immediately give them up. So you might, I mean, we're all human, right? In terms of a lot of money can do a lot of things for us. So to a certain extent, it's not going to change money, but it's going to make you maybe think twice about something. If you think you've got a good setup, a great job as Chloe was saying, you're less likely to immediately want to kind of give that up. At least you're going to think. And I think that's the thing that all you can do is saying what's in your power as an organisation, or as a manager, as a leader, or as an individual, to make your current setup as effective as you possibly can, and recognise things that you enjoy about it. I think that's the secret sauce to this. I think in terms of where it can add value to organisations, particularly at this moment in time.
I love it. I love it. Thank you ever so much for your time, both of you today.
It's been real fun.
Nice bonus human.
Had fun, I enjoyed it.
Oh, see? So yes, everybody's been on a podcast this week then. Yes, you beat Charlotte.
Charlotte's doing one on Friday, but this is our favourite podcast. Obviously, this is one of the days. So
Crawler. Awesome. Well, thank you ever so much, and no doubt we'll be dragging you on at some other point to talk about other bits and pieces you're up to.
Amazing.
Thanks for having us.
thanks for climbing aboard for this episode. You can find further information in the show notes. If you want to hire or become a work pirate, get started at workpirates.com.